Hey guys, welcome back. BDC Kara here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of December 21st, 2023. The current character challenge is Earth 2 Solomon Grundy. That is a 1-week repeat. The required characters are Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Sinestro, who, if you're looking at the lowest tier to get each of them, are available as low as Silver, Bronze, and Bronze, respectively. His passive is Death and Decay, which is when Solomon Grundy is in combat, his death aura does a damage over time to the enemy. There's a chance to decay a piece of gear for the whole match on tag-in, and opponents gain power twice as slow when they fight Solomon Grundy or any of his Earth 2 teammates. He's got 1,100 attack and 1,300 health, and was last available on the 23rd of February 2023.
Mm-hmm. Decent stats. A large health pool, not exactly what we like them. We like them to have higher offensive potential, but, stats aren't bad. I think what keeps him from being great is how slow he is, because all Solomon Grundys are slow.
Yeah.
He's got 3 passive abilities. They're all reasonably significant. The damage over time, first, is nice. It doesn't change the fight, though. I feel like there isn't enough damage from it happening, and it just occurred to me this time after years of playing with him and after already having done his review once before, what's February 23rd? That's like 10 months ago. Mm-hmm. I think his damage over time might actually be further enhancing his power dampening ability. And it's why when you look at Killer Frost by herself or Earth 2 Solomon Grundy by himself in the fight, it feels like his power dampening is actually more powerful than hers, even though hers is supposed to be cutting it in half the same way. And it's not just the wording of their passive where it says gaining power is like half. Like, it's a weird way of wording it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The chance to disable one piece of gear for the whole fight compared to Claw of Horus, which is until tag out, compared to Dawn of Justice Superman, which is for 1 minute, that can shift the entire fight. Mm-hmm. That is fight changing.
Yeah. The good news with those other abilities is that oftentimes when fights are fast, that it doesn't matter. Right. There's not enough time for it to come around. But if you're less sort of consistent or less confident, or your fights are slower, then it just being forever so that you don't have to think about it is really nice.
Right. So we've got a few multiplayer videos highlighting Earth 2 Solomon Grundy. Playlist is in the description. And I think the interesting thing is what we do with him that's different, that's non-traditional, right? So if you lean into the whole power dampening thing, you're pretty much protected against specials except passives or gears that give a fixed amount of power. Tattoo Totem, Killing Joke Joker. You're also a little bit vulnerable to the off-screen opponents who are generating power like normal when they're not in the fight, but that takes much longer. It's actually, as long as your offensive output is decent, that's not going to really be a big difference changer for the fight. So despite being a defensive passive, we still like him a lot because you've got 9 gear slots on your team to boost your damage, and all these defensive abilities don't really come at much of a cost.
Yeah.
So the last time we used him, we used an unorthodox team, and it's unorthodox because Earth 2 universe characters have a decent amount of synergy, right? They really help each other out a lot. But instead of even having one Earth 2 teammate, the team that we most recently used 10 months ago had Hawkgirl to speed up the tagging in and tagging out, and Killer Frost to increase the power dampening. But this time, instead of leaning into the power dampening, we're not going to bother. We're slotting him in with Rebirth Raven as a third teammate. And that's probably not the smartest decision, if only because when we're dampening the opponent's power generation, there's less for us to steal with Rebirth Raven. But it still works because of the off-screen characters tagging in with that fixed power that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So Solomon Grundy, lots of examples, right? Arkham Origins Batman, Tattoo Totem, Ra's al Ghul Scimitar. All right, so Solomon Grundy in this team has Tattoo Totem, Master's Death Card, plus Claw of Horus. So instead of leaning to power dampening, we're leaning more into shattering gears, because despite Grundy's built-in gear shattering being more powerful, lasting the whole match, the percentage of times it happens on tag-in seems pretty low. I'm not really sure how often it happens, but it feels like it happens way, way less than half the time. Probably, if we're lucky, maybe a third, a quarter. Yeah. And so that's going to be hard to really take advantage of that, to try to, because, they got 3 gear slots. You're not targeting a specific gear. You're targeting potentially a gear. It could be any one of the three, and the real one that we want to get rid of is Astral Harness.
Yeah.
So his special 2 is interesting, because now that we're playing with him as the main damage dealer, you really get a feel for the shape of his special 2. A lot of characters have a kicker at the end of their special 2, so even if they're not one of the newer characters and they are able to knock out an opponent with more than just the last hit often does more damage than not all the previous ones together, but all the previous ones individually.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get a nice kicker at the end, is what I mean. So the problem here is it feels like his second last hit does more damage, and from a practical point of view, that means a reviving opponent can sometimes be a real pain in the butt for him, because his last hit is going to take care of the revive health, and it feels like it doesn't hit hard enough to really sort of finish off the opponent.
Yeah. So there we go. There's been a challenge character pattern that's been going on for like 3 years at this point, and based off of that, we expect next week to be static.
Right. So I do want to point out to viewers who, because we get a lot more of an audience on our weekly recap. So as we like to point out, there's still 23 challenge characters missing. We've had a few people asking, hey, how about doing some of those missing challenge characters in your multiplayer team highlights? It doesn't really fit in our weekly recap, but we were thinking of maybe doing it in our Q&A, using that as a background for the, the jibber jabber talking that we do.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you want, let us know in the comments. Can't guarantee that'll happen, but at least it'll help us gauge the potential interest in that. Because up until now, what we've been doing is spending, a week with each of the challenge characters just to get a better feel. But now that we've done all of them, with the exception of Arkham Origins Bane,
yeah,
and Johnster Greenlander, sort of, we've had him in a few teams, but maybe not as the star.
Yeah.
It would be helpful to us to know if you want to see that instead on the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. This week's multiplayer reward is the Alien Artifact, which becomes the Mother Box. And when it is maxed out, its effects are a 28% max health increase, a 30% chance to blink against Special 2, and the evolved ability, which is 100% power drain chance at the start of the match. This one was last available on the 18th of May, 2023. We're also about 3 years into a consistent pattern for this, and next week's multiplayer reward should be Cassandra Cain Batgirl based on that pattern.
So 5 cycles. This is the first week of a new cycle, of cycle number 6. Wow.
That's true.
So to us, this isn't really a legendary piece of gear. Our bias has always been towards offensive gears, so the max health increase, it's good compared to other health increases, just not for us.
Yeah.
The 30% chance to blink against Special 2 became pretty much useless once the Tanty Totem was released.
Because if it's a Special 2 that matters,
right,
they'll just get all their power back.
Right. So we actually, in certain circumstances, having them blink is useful, say for our Justice League team, where we were using New 52 Wonder Woman to give her teammates power. You blink, we just do a second Special 2 real fast because we get all our power back.
Yeah.
And we're building up our teammates even faster. So sometimes we actually look forward to facing this in fights. Power Drain can be useful only because it works against the first slot opponent, no matter who is holding the Mother Box on your team. So we've taken advantage of that a few times when we're using Quake Engine on our main damage dealer, so that when they tag in, unless the opponent has power, unless the opponent has LexCorp gear set with 2 pieces to reverse the power drain, where it gives them power, which does the opposite of what we want. Draining power means that we have a better chance of doing boosted damage from our Quake Engine, say when we've got Arkham Knight Catwoman coming in.
Yeah.
And not only do we do more boosted damage, we get all the damage over time effects for her as our Special 2 specialist.
Mm-hmm. So there we go.
Right. Anything else to say? It feels like my feelings on Mother Box has evolved a bit. I used to think, we only got 9 gear slots. It's hard to justify sticking this for that one ability. But sometimes when the rest of your team is powerful enough, you can do minor things to tweak it like this that makes your team that little bit more effective.
Yeah, and especially because it doesn't normally matter for us, but, it could still help you against another team sometimes.
Yeah.
So moving on to the store, we have the Static Challenge Pack for 200,000 power credits. And this is interesting because it's one of the examples in which the regular challenge pack actually specifically lists Static's probability.
Right, because it only lists maybe, I think, 6 of them.
Yeah.
Before it says the rest of them, and it lumps them all together. Yeah.
So you get a 6.16% chance of getting Static instead of the 2.86% chance you normally have in the regular challenge pack. And we've run the math, and unless you are selling every character except for Static and maybe one other one straight back to the store, the extra 50,000 credits is not worth it. You're better off just buying the cheaper pack. Right. We also have the character bundle Suicide Squad for $24.99 Canadian. I'll price in Canadian because that's the information we have access to.
That's the only currency that matters. You know I was going to say that, right?
Yeah. Well, I know you. And the characters that comes with are Suicide Squad Harley Quinn and Suicide Squad Joker. And you get 2 random gears out of 5 possible gears. So there are the 2 signature gears, which you have a 35% chance of each. And then the 3 Suicide Squad companion gears, which you get a 10% chance of each. And those are the signature gears for Harley Quinn and the Joker.
And that you would normally get in Survive, or a chance at them with the Last Laugh tickets.
Yeah.
So those would be really good. Unfortunately, there's still like 1 in 10 chance of each.
Yeah, and so if they're asking you for the real money, I feel like they could just fork over the good ones.
Yeah. So the Icebreaker pack is there for a second. We talked about that a bit last week. Bunch of other character packs. I think most of them have either been there from the very beginning, or they've been there for more than a couple years now, so probably not worth mentioning. And Phantom Zone is back for 2 weeks. Fight 62 is still broken. The most interesting thing to me is that there's double XP for 11 days. So that should take us to the new year. And why this is funny to me is that traditionally for school, the time off, there's that week between Christmas and New Year's. It's always one of the 2 weeks. In North America, at least I'm talking about. Yeah. It's at least one of the 2 weeks. And there's another week that comes typically after that week. So if Christmas happens to fall in the middle of the week, you get that week plus the next week. But if Christmas falls right at the beginning of the week, then you get that week and then the next week after. So it seems like it's covering the way school does to say, woohoo! Yeah. Last weekend's breakthrough for golds was, as expected, Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, and Lobo. This coming weekend is probably going to be Lex Luthor, Batman, and Doomsday. Link in the description to a thread in the Injustice Mobile subreddit from Devlin16, one of the mods there that goes over the complete breakthrough cycle. And
it's not the first week of the month, so we're not doing our sort of more detailed glitch run through. If you want the first week of this month, that would be, or not the first, it would be the 7th of December 2023 weekly recap. The important details are that the challenge reset is working. We've confirmed that on the Earth 2 Solomon Grundy challenge, and also that Phantom Zone reset is working. And these are sort of paired glitches. You're resetting progress on both when you reset progress on one, and while they're both around, it's good to keep that in mind. So you're only resetting progress when ideally you've either finished both or finished one and made sort of no progress or only accidental progress on the other. Yeah.
Okay.
So there we go. To finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That's Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, and Nora Klimek, who are supporting us on the credited level, as well as the names scrolling past that have supported us at some point during the pandemic. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.